1996, Atlanta had the Olympic Games here, and I was working in the hair salon, and after that I designed our very first Bonika Shear, which was the Bonika International. Right now we don't have Bonika International in our lineup. We probably will again, but it has gone through a lot of changes over the year, but it has something little tricky if you sharpen shears that you need to know about. So let's take a look at what's different about this and what you need to know and how to sharpen the Bonika International. So a little story about working in the Olympic hair salon in the Bonika International. I'll try to make it short, but I got a lot of stories that come from that. So as I'm sharpening this, I may tell you some of the interesting stories. But it was 96, and I was invited to be the receptionist, scissor, sharpener, whatever. Took care of the clippers for the different hairstylists and barbers that worked in the hair salon inside the Olympic Village. It was quite a cool thing. Got to meet a lot of the athletes. And what we found out is that none of the shears were keeping up with the type of cutting that they were doing. Because these athletes, they're pretty healthy men and women. And some of them had some extremely coarse, thick hair. Not the gymnasts. They all had fine hair. I couldn't quite figure it out, the combination on that. But all the shears were going dull, especially at the tips. So after the Olympics, we came out with our first Bonika Shear, and we made a special design on the tip, which I'll show you as we get into the sharpening. And of course, we've added to our collection since then. But we debuted our first Bonika International Shear as the first shear design for multicultural hair, which is exactly what we had at the Olympics. So yeah, I'm an Olympic sharpener. How about that? So to begin with, what makes the Bonika International special is the serration on the tip. Let me show you this serration. I'm going to get my magnifier out. Oh no, I must have left it on. My batteries are dead. So, on the side with the finger rest, there is a little micro serrations. You see the little teeth? I'm going to come in really close here. The little bitty teeny tiny teeth. And I've got to put the serrations back on. So I told you as I was doing this, I'd tell you some of the stories about working in the Olympic hair salon. And that was a unique year in that it was a consortium of, I think it was like 5 local hair salons, plus Design Essentials, which is a product company that's out of Atlanta, that went together and pitched the bid to do the hair salon in the Olympic Village. Most people don't realize all the athletes and have access for a free shampoo and haircut in the Olympic Village as often as they wanted. The coaches and other people, I think they had to pay a little bit, and then if they wanted color or body waxing or nails or something like that, there would be extra. So we were open, I think like 14 hours a day during the Olympics. And sometimes you would get there in the morning when they first open up, and there'd be a long line all the way down the hallway. And some people would wait up to 3 hours to get their hair cut. And you think about the Olympians, you think about them all being, young, and, 19, 20, 23 years old. Some of the shooters, they were like middle-aged women, and especially coming from the year that we were doing it, some of the countries that had been part of the Russian Soviet bloc, it was their first time to be their own country and be able to send their own athletes, which was quite a big deal to their country. And what I'm doing now, in case you're wondering, is I'm working the rod line just like I would any other convex edge shear. It's going to be toward the end that you're going to see me do something different. And when I do the rod line, I'm pressing here. Now I kind of assume when I'm talking that you've been following my videos and you know who I am. Well, when I look at the analytics, I realize half of you don't know who I am and that you're new to my channel. So I'm Bonnie Megowan. I do a whole bunch of videos on shear sharpening. So, and I can tell by the questions, a lot of you are very new to this. This is my Cymek machine. We sell it. I do training. But there are other flat hone machines that you can sharpen beauty shears with. But you've got to have a flat hone. You've got to be working on here to do a true convex edge. You can approximate it, and I've seen some people do a pretty decent job. This is my clamp, and I can set the exact angle on my clamp. Now, right now I have it set on 40. I'm going to move this up to 45, which is a good angle for this particular shear. This shear is designed for, you can slide cut, but also because of that micro serration on the tip, it's really good for straight cutting. So I'm going to create a burr. Let's see. Looks like it's been sharpened pretty decently. I don't need that coarse of blade. Let me get something a little finer. This 800 grit is a little bit worn. But my job when I worked in the Olympics was I sat at the reception desk and checked people in, and I would try to help line them up to the correct hairstylist or barber, depending on their hair texture. And it wasn't necessarily their skin color, but it was the hair texture. So sometimes I would get some of these Irish women that would come in with just really, really curly hair. And they would want a relaxer, they'd want the hair straightened or whatever. And I would send them to some of our stylists who were African American, who were used to sharpening, here, I'm talking about sharpening, used to cutting curly hair and styling it and flattening it and straightening it and whatever. And then I would get others come in that might be from dark skin, maybe from Somalia or Ethiopia, that would have very straight hair, that very dark skin. And so my job was to kind of pair them up with the right person. And then also my job was, if the shears were dull, they would bring them to me to sharpen between clients. I think I'm good to go there. A lot of times I'll go down to something finer. I think I'm going to be okay here. Here's where the thing is that I'm going to do different. So we were doing all kinds of, or they were doing all kinds of cool stuff. Coloring the hair, weird colors. I mean, most people weren't going to be gold medal winners, but they just wanted people at home to be able to spot them. And so we would color their hair some gosh awful color, so that if they were, if they caught them on the camera, the people would know they were there. It was kind of funny. And they would do some designs into the hair with clippers and trimmers to make them fit. Okay, now what I'm doing now, this is my serration file. And I'm reestablishing those little corrugations or little serrations right there at the tip. And it's only from here to the tip. So I'm not using the whole file. I'm going to use half the file. And I'm going to try to feel and line it up to where those serrations still are a little bit there. But I'm just going to make them a little bit more pronounced. And I usually like to do this before I remove the burr on the inside and before I polish. Because this does create a little bit of a burr. That's the tricky thing about the Bonika International that you need to know. And if you don't have one of these files, we sell them. We get them from Wolf, which is a good company. We sell a couple of things that we get from there. Same price whether you get it from us or not. So I'm going to remove my burr. And once again, if some of you are new to this channel, I'd like to comment in there, what brought you here? Are you interested in getting into sharpening? Are you just curious how your shears are sharpened? Or you've been sharpening knives and you're like, oh, look, sharpening shears, that's a little different. So, put in there why you're here. And we have a big group of sharpeners every year for the last 22 years have been coming in for our Sharpeners Jam. We're getting ready to do ours again in April of this year. Part of it is absolutely free, and then part of it there's some paid classes because there's educators besides me that we need to pay. Now I know I give a lot of free education on our YouTube, but that event, as I said, I bring in other trainers. I've got like 3 so far and some more that we're negotiating with, trying to get them to come in. Now what I just put on here is diamond spray. I have this diamond spray. It's also on our website. We sell it in 1 micron and 3 micron. This isn't labeled because I don't know if it's 1 micron or 3 micron. But the reason why is we're a family business. I use grandchild labor, and one of them didn't get labeled and got mixed in with everything else, and I get all the leftovers. Speaking of that, I mean, if we're looking at what goes wrong with my stuff, I want you to notice my machine. My spatter guard is all wacky. And I got little nicks and little problems up in here where the paint's coming off. Reason why, 2 weeks ago, I had my machine in my car and went to the grocery store, pulled out of the grocery store really fast and hard, and I did not have the back of my car, the trunk, closed right. And this went bouncing down the street in the middle of a busy street. Cold as it could be. I had to jump out, go get it out of the street, and it ran perfectly. Fortunately, I tell you what has helped, made this better, is that now we have a new thing on the arm of our machine. So this comes off. If you're watching this and you have this, you have a Cymec with this type of arm, we can send you one of these little wing nuts, or you can buy one yourself. And it's kind of nice just to take this arm off when you're traveling with this, because it's just a little easier to carry. One of the reactions I get from people, let's try this again. One of the reactions I get from people that come in for training is they almost invariably, they'll say, gee, I thought that machine was a lot bigger than that. It's so small. Undoubtedly, my machine looks bigger in here. And a lot of times they say, your training room is smaller than what I thought. And I said, yeah. I said, but the real thing I want to know, do I look smaller in person than I do on the video? If you've been here and you're watching the video, hey, let me know. Do I look big in this plaid shirt? Nah, I shouldn't be asking you that. Okay, so what I've done on my clamp, I've moved my detente. I've moved it up. So instead of 45, I'm like at 48. And interrupting with a promo for the Sharpeners Jam 2022, last week of April. Go to sharpenersjam.com or check out our Facebook group, Sharpeners Jam group, and you want to be involved in this. Every year we have the Sharpeners Jam. Don't miss a year. And the reason why, when I polish, I don't want to polish over the edge. I want to polish just up to the edge. So that allows me to sort of kiss the edge with my felt pad and not roll over it. Now, if you have another system of sharpening, you may want to try backing it off and see if you get a little bit sharper edge. And a lot of times I'll go a little bit faster. And this will take out scratches. It also makes the edge a little smoother. But probably the most important thing is I've probably created a little bit of outside burr when I remove the inside burr, because what we're doing, we're chasing the burr back and forth. And man, that polished up pretty. Now remember, I didn't go down to anything lower than a worn 800. So the last guy that I had here training, it was advanced training, and he was already sharpening. And I think that's probably one of the things he got out of it the most, is that, I want you to look and see how nice and shiny that looks. Let me see if I can put a little light on it. See? I mean, that, we did one blade his way, where he went through all these extra steps. And then mine where I went straight from the 800 to the polish. And yes, you could tell the difference. And yes, if you really, really needed your shear to look perfect, you were going to try to sell it as new. Maybe it's a new shear that somebody dropped on the floor. Yeah, go through all those steps. But for normal sharpening, I tell people what I want them to be is not the best sharpener in the world, but the richest sharpener. And people say, well, do you want them richer than you, Bonnie? And I'm like, yeah, because believe me, you'll make a lot more money sharpening shears than I make training people how to sharpen shears. In fact, the ones I'm doing here are for a distributor who doesn't want to sharpen, and so I'm just doing these at a wholesale price. So you're going to be charging probably twice what I'm charging for sharpening. But he also sent me a box of 11 of these too, and I have something to show on videos. I have 3 over here I want to do another video on while I'm working on this. Because I'd like to try to load 2 a week. Now my schedule's going to start getting really, really busy this spring. So I don't know if I'll be able to upload twice a week like I have been. But I've got hundreds and hundreds of sharpening videos. Now right now I'm putting the shears together. And this is also a trick you might want to do. You see how I hold this? I put my washer on my post. Put that in here. Hold that in my left hand. And I apologize for my dirty hands. I've been doing a lot of sharpening today. Did a lot of sharpening this week. And there's a little nipple that has a stick up. And actually doing more sharpening than I really like to do. Y'all need to be out there sharpening. You know, I had to drive to another town on Monday. It was a town that was only 2 hours away, but there should be somebody up there that can do a good job for her without me having to drive up there. But it was a town I wanted to go to. Now, see, I'm cutting any residual burr off on the paper towel. And then I'm going to check my adjustment. And let's get secret testing paper. Yes, this is toilet tissue. If you're new to my channel, you may be surprised. When I was sharpening for the lady out of town, I was sharpening in front of her, and she was just very surprised to see me cutting toilet tissue. And I said, well, yeah. I said, but you see how that's cutting dry. And it should cut wet. And I'm using very little pressure. Double checking that tip. And let's see how it cuts here. But she had 8 pairs of shears. She said it needed sharpening. And then she ended up buying a pair. So I made enough money that we stayed in a hotel. Yeah, it cuts nice. You see how that just snips that tip without pulling? Without any pushing. And was able to take some grandkids with me, and we went to some touristy things, and that's the life of a sharpener. No more vacations. You're going to do business trips, and if you can squeeze in a little pleasure, bring family along as you go, why not? Okay, those are done, and that's how to do the Bonika International. I'm hoping to bring these back. They'll have a different style handle. They'll look different, but they will say International. Now these say International 3. Probably if I bring them back, they're going to be the I4s. Because we've had I1, I2, I3, and I4. And just trying to decide on what handle and what style we want. Things change. What people are interested in knowing more about sharpening, if you're interested in beginning sharpening, if you're interested in advanced sharpening, I do those classes online and in person. But we're in beautiful downtown Loganville. Where's Loganville? We are between Atlanta and Athens, Georgia. We're like country, but you fly into the Atlanta airport. We're easy to get to. a lot of interstates nearby, and if you come to Atlanta, we've got a lot of things to see and do. We bring in people all the time for training, so come by and come to our Sharpeners Jam and subscribe.